Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we're diving into something that is honestly going to fundamentally alter how you experience your own life. We're exploring some absolutely mind-bending insights from Chapter 2 of Bimal Chandra Dan's fantastic book, Half-True Universe. And what Dan does here is just incredible. He takes the hard mathematical reality of Einstein's physics and maps it directly onto ancient Vedantic philosophy to completely shatter our everyday perception of reality. It is a profound journey, so let's just jump right in.
So think about this for a second. Do we all share the exact same now? I mean, it's probably the most intimate, deeply held assumption we make about time, isn't it? We just assume that right at this exact second, there's this universal, cosmic present happening everywhere at once. But we actually need to dismantle that assumption right out of the gate. Because what if I told you that the present moment is absolutely not a universal experience?
Now, if you think that sounds crazy, well, we have to look at the words of Albert Einstein himself to see just how serious this is. In a really famous 1955 letter written to the family of his lifelong friend Michel Besso, Einstein wrote that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. And he wasn't just being poetic here, he was stating a hard physical fact. The whole flow of time, from past to present to future, it's an illusion. And as we're about to see, it's actually a structural illusion built right into the universe itself.
All right, let's move into Act 1, the Abolition of Now, or as physicists call it, the relativity of simultaneity.
To kind of peel back the first layer of this massive illusion, we have to recognize that Einstein didn't just tweak a few math equations, he entirely abolished the concept of a universal present. And to really get this, we need to define what we're deconstructing: simultaneity. This is simply the idea of two events happening at the exact same time. Now, Newtonian physics told us that if two things happen at the same time for me, they happen at the same time for you, no matter where you are or how fast you're moving. While relativity proves that is totally false. Simultaneity is entirely dependent on your specific frame of reference.
Okay, picture this. It's Einstein's famous thought experiment, and it shows this in action perfectly. Imagine a super long train moving at high speed. Step 1. Exactly as the midpoint of the train passes a lamp on the platform, the lamp flashes. Step 2. For an observer standing perfectly still on the platform, the light travels the exact same distance to the front and the back of the train, so they see the light hit both ends simultaneously, at the exact same time. But, Step 3. Think about the observer inside the moving train. The train is moving forward, right? So the back of the train is rushing toward the light pulse, while the front is rushing away from it. From the train observer's perspective, the light hits the back of the train first. Two observers. One sees simultaneous events, the other sees sequential events. And the craziest part? Neither observer is wrong.
And here's the kicker, the really radical takeaway. The universe literally does not have a shared now. There is no single moment called now that belongs to the cosmos as a whole. The present is always inescapably local. It is always someone's highly specific, observer-dependent present.
Which brings us to Act 2. Time is radically personal. The clock that knows where it has been.
So, we've completely dismantled the idea of a shared present moment. But what about the actual flow and measurement of time itself? This brings us to time dilation. It's the slowing of time for objects in motion relative to a stationary observer. And I really need to stress this. This is not some weird mathematical trick. It is an empirical, measurable, physical fact. You know the GPS satellites that guide your car right now? They actually have to mathematically correct for relativistic time dilation, otherwise their positioning data would be totally useless in a matter of minutes. Time literally ticks differently depending on how you move.
To see exactly why this happens, imagine a really simple clock made of just a pulse of light bouncing up and down between two mirrors. Tick, tock, up, down. Now put that clock on a fast-moving train. For the person riding on the train, the light just goes straight up and down. But for you, standing on the platform watching the train zip by, that light isn't just moving up and down, it's also moving forward with the train. It's actually tracing a diagonal path, and that diagonal path is longer. Because the speed of light is absolutely constant, if the light has to travel a longer distance, it literally must take more time. So the unavoidable, literal, mechanical reality here is that time moves slower for the moving clock.
I mean, really think about what this means for you personally. Your age, in the absolute deepest physical sense, is not a solid fact about you. It's actually a fact about your specific history of relative motion. Time, this dimension we feel, is the absolute most intimate part of our existence, is radically, uniquely personal.
Okay, moving on to Act 3, the speed limit of reality. Basically, the rule book for this cosmic mirage.
So why does time dilate? Why is there no universal now? Well, it all comes down to one unbreakable rule. In his book, Bimal Chandra Dan points out that the speed of light isn't just a physical measurement. It actually acts as the structural parameter of a cosmic illusion. It's the very mechanism that maintains the mirage of our universe, literally separating us from direct knowledge of the universe as it actually is.
299,792 kilometers per second. To put that into perspective, that is fast enough to circle the Earth about 7.5 times in a single second. But this isn't merely the speed of photons flying through a vacuum. It is the absolute speed limit of causation itself. It's the maximum rate at which any influence or any information whatsoever can propagate through space.
Next up, Act 4, light cones and Upadhi, the causal bubble.
This is where Dan does something super cool. He builds this magnificent bridge between theoretical physics and ancient philosophy. Because information has a strict speed limit, you are trapped inside a mathematical structure called a light cone. From your exact position in space and time right now, there's only a specific bubble of the universe from which light, and therefore any information or causality, could have possibly reached you. Everything outside your past light cone, it is completely, strictly unknowable to you. It's an inescapable causal bubble.
And when you zoom out to look at the universe at large, because of all these different light cones, there is massive disagreement about simultaneity. The universe isn't some single story being told in one tense. It's like a vast, multidimensional text with absolutely no agreed-upon reading order. Events in your past might actually be in the future of an observer moving in another galaxy, and vice versa. Crazy, right?
Just look at how perfectly these two totally different worlds mirror each other here. On one hand, physics gives us the light cone, the structural limit on an observer's causal access to the universe. On the other, Vedanta gives us Upadhi. Upadhi is the limiting adjunct, basically the specific body, mind, and sensory apparatus that restricts universal consciousness into an individual, limited perspective. Einstein's light cone perfectly, and I mean mathematically, maps onto the ancient concept of Upadhi. They are both structural boundaries of ignorance that define a highly specific vantage point.
Finally, we arrive at Act 5, woven from light itself, the ultimate mechanism of Maya. All right, let's bring the physics and the philosophy together for the grand synthesis. Vedanta says that Maya is the creative power that projects the illusion of multiplicity. But, a functional illusion needs rules, otherwise it's just chaos. The speed of light, c, is that rule book. It sets the rate of exchange between space and time. It ensures that even though my now and your now are completely different, we can still inhabit a consistent, shared physical reality.
So what exactly is this veil separating us from absolute reality? Well, Dan makes this absolutely stunning point. The veil of Maya is not woven from darkness. It isn't woven from some magical mystery or a lack of scientific progress.
The veil is woven from light itself. Because information travels at a finite speed, we are literally encapsulated. Because light takes time to travel, the present we perceive is just a stitched-together collage of different pasts. The finite speed of light is the very thing that enforces our separation, making space, time, and form relative rather than absolute. It is literally the mechanism that traps us in this beautiful cosmic mirage.
Which leads